for giving me your time and attention. I know we all have full lives, packed schedules, and countless responsibilities. So the fact that you're sitting here tells me that you're seeking something. Maybe clarity, maybe strength, maybe peace. Whatever brought you here, I want you to know that you're not alone. We're all trying to navigate this thing called life, and sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's really hard. Let me start with something simple but powerful. If your job is killing you, God has another plan. Let those words sink in for a second. We live in a culture that glorifies busyness. We wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. We confuse burnout for success and stress for productivity. We believe the louder our calendar screams, the more valuable we are. But at some point, we have to pause and ask ourselves, at what cost? You see, jobs are important. Work has meaning. It can bring structure, purpose, and dignity. But when your job starts draining the life out of you, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even physically, then something is off. And that's when it's time to ask the deeper questions. Many of us stay in toxic jobs because we think we have no choice. We convince ourselves that enduring pain is part of the path to progress, that if we just push through a little longer, it'll all be worth it. But while persistence is a virtue, suffering without purpose is not. You were not put on this earth to merely survive your weekdays so you can feel alive on the weekend. You were not created to dread every morning, to cry in the bathroom between meetings, or to constantly feel like you're not good enough. You were not called to sit in a cubicle while your spirit crumbles. Let me tell you something that might sound radical in today's hustle-obsessed world. God did not create you to be miserable. Now, that doesn't mean life is supposed to be easy. It doesn't mean we'll never struggle. But there is a difference between enduring challenges that grow us and living inside a daily environment that breaks us. God is not trying to punish you through your job. And if your job is killing you, literally or figuratively, I want you to believe, even if just for a moment, that there is another plan, a better one, a divine one. It might not look like a promotion. It might not even be a job in the traditional sense, but it will be something that aligns with who you truly are, something that uses your gifts, not just your labor, something that brings you peace, not panic. Let me share a story. A friend of mine worked in finance for over a decade. She was brilliant, hardworking, and deeply respected. But she was also constantly anxious. Her health was deteriorating. She barely slept. Her relationships suffered. But she stayed because the job paid well, because it was secure, because she didn't want to feel like a failure. One day, she ended up in the hospital with stress-induced heart issues. That was her wake-up call. It was no longer just emotional stress. It was her body literally shutting down. And that's when she heard a whisper in her spirit. This is not what I made you for. She walked away from that job, not because she had another lined up, not because she was financially ready, but because her soul couldn't afford to stay. And guess what? She didn't just survive, she eventually thrived. Today, she runs a wellness practice helping other women recognize the signs of burnout before it's too late. She turned her pain into purpose. That's what happens when you start listening to the whisper of God, even when it doesn't make sense. God's plan often starts with a whisper, a quiet nudge in your heart, a restlessness that won't go away. That's Him trying to reroute you, trying to get your attention, not because He wants to disrupt your life, but because He wants to give you more life. Now, I understand some of you are thinking, that sounds great, but I can't just quit my job. I've got bills. I've got a family. I have responsibilities. I hear you, and I'm not telling you to be reckless. I'm not saying jump ship without a life raft, but I am telling you to pay attention to what's happening inside of you. If your job is killing your joy, draining your passion, and silencing your soul, God is not in that. God does not call you into a place where you have to die emotionally just to live financially. There's a verse in the Bible that says, I came that they may have life and have it more abundantly. That means a full life, a whole life, not a life where you're constantly pretending to be okay, where your smile hides your suffering, and where success feels hollow. God didn't design you to be stuck in survival mode. Sometimes the reason you feel so uncomfortable is because God is making you outgrow what you were never meant to settle for. Discomfort can be a sign of transformation. It's like the feeling before a seed breaks through the soil. Painful, but necessary. Scary, but sacred. When your job becomes a cage, God starts shaking the bars. But here's the truth. We can't receive God's new plan if we're clinging desperately to the old one. We often pray for change, but we refuse to move. We want peace, but we stay in chaos. We want joy, but we keep choosing pain. Let me say this clearly. You are not weak for wanting to walk away from a job that's destroying you. You are not selfish for wanting to protect your mental health. You are not lazy for dreaming of more. You are not disobedient for following your heart when it leads you away from corporate ladders and toxic environments. Courage sometimes looks like walking away, not because you gave up, but because you chose to live. If God is nudging you toward something else, whether it's a different career, your own business, a season of rest, or even a completely unknown path, trust that nudge. It's not random, it's intentional. God often uses closed doors to open new paths. He allows certain things to fall apart so better things can come together. But we have to be willing to let go. And yes, letting go is hard, especially when we've wrapped our identity in our careers, especially when the world tells us our value is in our title, our paycheck, our productivity. But you are not your job. You are not your role. You are not your resume. You are a child of God, a soul with a purpose far greater than just clocking in and out. So if your job is killing you, I beg you to listen to your spirit. Ask yourself some real questions. What would it look like to trust that God has something better for you? What would it feel like to live without that constant pit in your stomach, that dread on Sunday night, that anxiety every time your phone buzzes? The world will tell you to toughen up, but God is telling you to heal. The world will tell you to grind harder, but God is inviting you to rest. The world will say you're nothing without a job, but God says you're everything to Him even when you do nothing. Your worth was never meant to be measured by your output. And if all of this feels overwhelming, I get it. Change is hard. Trusting God's plan when you can't see the full picture is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. But let me remind you of something. You don't have to figure it all out at once. You just have to take the next right step. That's it. One step on prayer, one decision, and then another. God doesn't need you to have the whole map. He just wants you to trust the compass He placed in your heart. So take the time to sit with yourself, reflect, pray, journal, talk to people who love you, and most importantly, listen. Not just to the noise of the world, but to the whisper of your soul. Because in that whisper, God is speaking. You might not see the plan right now. You might feel like you're in the dark. But faith isn't about seeing the whole staircase. Faith is about taking the first step, even when you don't know where it leads. I don't know what God's plan is for you, but I know this. It doesn't involve you suffering endlessly just to make a living. It doesn't involve losing your health, your relationships, or your peace. God is too good, too intentional, too loving for that. You are allowed to choose joy. You are allowed to choose rest. You are allowed to choose yourself. And yes, you are allowed to choose a new path. Your well-being matters more than your paycheck. That's not just a comforting phrase. It's a truth that many people know deep down, but struggle to live by. In a world that constantly pushes us to produce, to hustle, to grind, and to sacrifice everything for success, it's easy to lose sight of the simple fact that your health, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, is priceless. When your job begins to chip away at who you are, when it steals your joy, leaves you feeling anxious or depressed, or starts affecting your physical health, it's not just a bad season at work. It's a warning sign. And that warning is not just coming from within. It's often a whisper from God, telling you that it's time to reevaluate what you're holding on to. It's natural to want stability, to cling to a job because it provides financial security. We all have responsibilities. Bills must be paid. Families must be fed. There's no shame in that. But too often, we sacrifice our well-being for a paycheck, believing it's the only way. We tell ourselves that we'll rest later, that we'll feel better next month, that this stress is just temporary. But sometimes it's not temporary. Sometimes the environment itself is toxic. The expectations are unrealistic. The leadership is abusive. The culture is draining, and still we stay convincing ourselves that enduring pain is what adulthood is supposed to look like. But what if that's not what God intended for you at all? God does not call you to suffer endlessly in a job that's destroying you. That kind of suffering is not noble. It's harmful. There's a difference between enduring a hard season that strengthens you and remaining in a harmful situation that diminishes you. God never intended for you to trade your peace for a paycheck. The God who created you in love, who knows every hair on your head, who formed you with a purpose, does not want to see you crushed under the weight of daily dread. The God who offers rest for the weary is not the same voice that says, "Keep going no matter what it costs you." Many people carry silent burdens every day, panic attacks hidden behind smiles, tears cried in cars before walking into meetings, exhaustion that sleep never seems to fix. And they do it for the paycheck, for the benefits, for the illusion of success. But money earned at the cost of your soul is not success. It's survival. And survival is not the life God promises. He promises abundance, not necessarily in wealth or status, but in peace, in purpose, in joy. Those things should not be the first casualties of your career. There's a deeply ingrained belief in many of us that leaving a job, especially a well-paying or prestigious one, is failure. That stepping away means you couldn't handle it, that choosing your mental or physical health is a weakness. But that belief is a lie. In reality, choosing to walk away from a job that's harming you is an act of strength. It's courage. It's wisdom. It's faith. It's saying, "I trust that God has more for me than this." It's refusing to believe that misery is the price you have to pay for a decent life. It's looking around at your situation and recognizing that staying is not sustainable, and that peace is not something to postpone until retirement. It's something to pursue now. Sometimes we stay in hard jobs because we think we're being responsible. And yes, responsibility matters. But there's a line between responsibility and martyrdom. You are not meant to be a martyr to your job. There is no reward for sacrificing your mental health on the altar of professionalism. The truth is, you can be responsible and still choose health. You can provide for your family and still pursue peace. You can honor your commitments without destroying yourself in the process. God does not ask you to trade in your spirit for stability. If your job is harming your well-being, it's okay to say so. It's okay to explore other paths. It's okay to listen to that still, small voice nudging you toward something else. God often uses our pain to point us toward purpose. And if the job you're in is causing more harm than good, then God may be preparing you for something new. It may not happen overnight. You may not know what's next. But know this, your well-being matters. You are allowed to protect it. You are allowed to prioritize it. And most importantly, you are not alone. God walks with you even in uncertainty. And if you're willing to trust him, he will lead you not just out of what's hurting you, but into what will heal and restore you. Burnout is not a badge of honor. It never has been, and it never will be. But we live in a world where being overwhelmed is worn like a medal, where the person who sleeps the least and works the most is praised as the most committed, the most driven, the most successful. We applaud people who push themselves to the brink, who sacrifice their health, relationships, and inner peace for the sake of meeting deadlines or climbing ladders. We've created a culture where burnout is expected and rest is seen as weakness. But that's not how we were designed to live. That's not what God wants for any of us. God values rest. He values peace. He values wholeness. From the very beginning, God showed us the rhythm of work and rest. He created the world in 6 days and then rested, not because he needed to, but to set the example for us. He built rest into creation itself. He designed us to pause, to reflect, to breathe, to reconnect with ourselves and with him. But we often ignore that design. We push past the signs. We dismiss the tension in our shoulders, the exhaustion in our bones, the anxiety that never leaves. We think, just a little more, I'll rest after this week, or everyone else is doing it. So we keep going until there's nothing left. And then we wonder why we feel so empty. Discomfort can feel cruel in the moment. It shows up as sleepless nights, racing thoughts, or the constant feeling that you're out of place. It's tempting to interpret it as something to fix with more effort. Maybe if you try harder, be more disciplined, stay a little longer, it will go away. But the truth is, when that discomfort continues to grow, no matter what you do, it's time to stop fixing and start listening. God might be telling you that the place you're in was never meant to be permanent, or that it served a purpose once, but its time in your life is over. Think about how growth happens in nature. A seed doesn't remain buried in the soil forever. It breaks open. It pushes against the earth. There's tension, resistance, struggle, yet that struggle is what makes growth possible. Without the discomfort, the seed would stay buried. And the same goes for us. That tension you feel, that sense that you're not where you're supposed to be anymore, could be the spiritual equivalent of outgrowing your current season. Sometimes God disrupts what's comfortable because he wants to do something greater through you. But to receive the new, you have to be willing to let go of the old. That means being honest with yourself about what's really going on inside. Are you truly at peace, or just pretending to be? Are you fulfilled, or just getting by? Are you growing, or just surviving? These are hard questions, but necessary ones. And here's the thing. Moving in a new direction doesn't always mean quitting your job overnight or making drastic changes without preparation. It might start with a conversation, a prayer, a shift in mindset, or a quiet commitment to explore what else is possible. God is patient. He doesn't rush us, but he does invite us. And if we keep ignoring the invitation, the discomfort will often grow until we can no longer deny it. There is purpose in your discomfort. It's not random. It's not meaningless. It may be the very tool God is using to wake you up to your next season. You may not have all the answers right now. The path ahead may feel uncertain. But what you're feeling inside is not something to brush off. It's a sign. It's God speaking, not in judgment, but in love. Calling you, guiding you, whispering, there's more than this. I have something better. So instead of running from discomfort, lean into it. Ask what it's trying to teach you. Ask where it's trying to lead you. Trust that even in the confusion, even in the restlessness, God is present. He hasn't abandoned you. He's inviting you into something new, something that will bring more peace, more meaning, and more alignment with who you truly are. Discomfort isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of change. And God will walk with you through every step of that change, even if the road feels uncertain. All he asks is that you listen. Leaving a harmful job is not failure. It's faith. It might feel like failure at first because we've been conditioned to believe that quitting means giving up, that walking away means we couldn't handle it, and that staying, even if it breaks us, is the braver choice. But there's nothing brave about staying in a place that is slowly stealing your peace, dimming your spirit, and damaging your health. There's nothing noble about enduring constant stress, disrespect, and emotional exhaustion. Choosing to leave is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's strength. And more than anything, it's trust. Trust that God has something better for you, even if you can't see it yet. Many of us hold on to jobs that are draining us because we fear what comes next. The unknown feels heavier than the pain we've grown used to. We stay because we're afraid of financial instability, afraid of disappointing others, afraid of admitting that something isn't working. We talk ourselves into believing that everyone feels like this, that being miserable at work is just part of life. But that's a lie that keeps us stuck. God didn't create you for survival mode. He didn't breathe life into you so you could spend your days shrinking, hiding, or suffocating in an environment that does not honor who you are. It takes deep courage to say, this is no longer good for me, and I choose to let it go. That kind of courage doesn't come from the world. It comes from faith. Faith that even when a door closes, another will open. Faith that when God removes something from your life, he isn't leaving you empty-handed. He's making room for something new, something better aligned with the person you're becoming. It's not about abandoning responsibilities or avoiding hard work. It's about refusing to accept harm as a necessary part of success. Walking away is an act of self-respect. It's acknowledging that your time, energy, health, and spirit are valuable, that you're not willing to keep pouring yourself into a role that leaves you empty. And yes, it's scary. Faith usually is, because faith doesn't always offer guarantees or timelines. The truth is, your value is not measured by how much you do. Your worth isn't defined by how productive you are or how much you can endure. You are not loved more when you're busier. You are not more important because your calendar is full. God does not call you to live a life of constant exhaustion. He does not require you to be stretched so thin that you forget who you are. Your identity isn't wrapped up in performance, productivity, or pressure. It's rooted in something far deeper, who you are, not what you do. So many people are running themselves into the ground trying to prove they matter. They take on more than they can handle. They say yes to everything because they're afraid of being seen as lazy, uncommitted, or weak. They keep showing up with smiles, even when they're breaking inside. But God doesn't need you to impress him with your effort. He already loves you as you are. You don't earn his love through your work. You already have it. And if the people around you only value you for what you can do, not for who you are, then maybe it's time to reevaluate who's in your circle. Burnout is a warning sign. It's your mind and body telling you that something isn't right. It's not something to brag about. It's not something to ignore. It's something to take seriously. When you find yourself constantly tired, constantly irritable, disconnected from joy, dreading each new day, that's not just stress. That's your soul waving a red flag. And God is paying attention to it, even if the world isn't. He's inviting you to slow down, to step back, to rest. There's a reason why Jesus himself often withdrew from the crowds to be alone and pray. There's a reason why he told his disciples to come away and rest. He knew that even in the midst of important work, rest was not optional. It was necessary. If the Son of God made rest a priority, then why do we think we can go without it? You don't have to burn out to prove your worth. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You don't have to earn love through effort. You are allowed to pause. You are allowed to take a breath. You are allowed to say, this is too much, and make changes. There is no glory in breaking yourself for a job or a role that won't hold you when you fall. God wants more for you than a life of exhaustion. He wants wholeness. And wholeness comes from honoring your limits, protecting your peace, and trusting that your value is not tied to what you do. Burnout is not strength. It's not endurance. It's a wound. And wounds need care, not celebration. So if you're tired beyond words, if your heart is heavy, if you've been running on empty for too long, know this. It's okay to stop. It's okay to rest. It's okay to rebuild. God is not disappointed in your need for rest. In fact, he's waiting for you to choose it. Because when you do, you'll begin to remember who you truly are. Not a machine, not a title, not a performer, but a person loved completely, just as you are. God speaks through discomfort. It's not always in the grand, dramatic ways we expect, thunder from the sky or a voice booming through silence. More often, he speaks in the quiet moments when something inside us feels off, unsettled, or uneasy. That persistent stress that won't go away, the anxiety that rises without clear cause, the restlessness that follows you even into moments of peace. These aren't always things to be ignored or pushed aside. Sometimes they're divine signals. They are God's way of nudging you gently, and sometimes urgently, toward a different path. We often associate discomfort with failure, weakness, or a lack of faith. But discomfort isn't always a sign that something is wrong with you. It can be a sign that something around you no longer aligns with what God has planned for you. There comes a time in many people's lives when what used to fit suddenly feels tight and constricting. The job you once felt grateful for becomes the source of daily anxiety. The routine that once brought comfort now feels like a trap. You try to push through it. You tell yourself to be more grateful, to work harder, to suck it up. But deep down, you know something isn't right. That inner discomfort is often the first sign that God is trying to move you. He rarely forces us into change. Instead, he allows the uneasiness to grow until we can no longer ignore it, not to punish us, but to prepare us. Because sometimes we can't hear God clearly in comfort. We become complacent. We settle. We adapt to things that are not meant for us because they're familiar or safe. And so God, in his wisdom and mercy, stirs the waters. There's a quiet power in deciding to trust God more than you trust your fears. There's strength in choosing peace over pressure, health over hustle, and calling over comfort. Some people may not understand your decision. They may tell you you're being impulsive or unrealistic, But only you know what it's been like to carry the weight of that job every single day. Only you know how hard it's been to keep going, to pretend, to keep smiling when your heart is tired. Your experience is valid. Your pain is real. And your choice to leave is yours to make. Letting go of a job that's harming you doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough to protect yourself. It means you're choosing to believe that God's plan for your life includes joy, purpose, and healing, not just endurance and survival. God honors those choices. He honors the steps we take when we move toward Him, even if our hands are shaking. He sees the tears cried after long work days. He hears the prayers whispered between tasks, and He knows when it's time for something new. When you choose to leave a toxic job, you're not walking away from your purpose. You're walking toward it. You're walking away from what's damaging you so you can walk into what can grow you. You're giving God space to show you what's possible when you surrender your comfort zone and trust His timing. And while it might take time to see what's next, while there might be a season of uncertainty, God never leaves you where He finds you. He is a God of movement, of transformation, of new beginnings. So don't let anyone convince you that staying is the only responsible choice. Don't let fear of judgment keep you tied to a job that's breaking your spirit. Don't believe that suffering in silence is the price of success. You are allowed to choose differently. You are allowed to prioritize your mental and emotional health. And you are allowed to believe that God's plan for your life is too important to waste in places that don't see your worth. Leaving isn't giving up. It's giving in to a greater calling. One that brings you closer to the life you are meant to live, one that reflects God's heart for you. And if that path begins with walking away, then walk, knowing you're not stepping into the unknown alone. You're stepping with faith. You are not your job. That truth may sound simple, but it's one of the hardest things to truly believe in a world that constantly tells you otherwise. We live in a culture that measures people by their productivity, their career achievements, their titles, and their income. From a young age, we're asked what we want to be when we grow up, as if our future worth depends entirely on our professional path. And as we grow older, we begin to believe that our identity is tied to our work. We let our roles define us. We let our job titles shape how we see ourselves and how others see us. But your job is not who you are. It's something you do. It may be a part of your life, but it is not the whole of your existence. Your identity is not your title. It is not your position in the company or your place on the organizational chart. It is not the number on your paycheck or the recognition you receive from colleagues. Those things can be stripped away in a moment through layoffs, restructuring, retirement, or simply by the natural changes of life. And when they are, if you've built your sense of self around them, you're left feeling lost, uncertain, and empty. That's why it's so important to remember that who you are is not determined by your job. It's determined by something deeper, something eternal. You are a unique and valuable person, created by God with purpose, meaning, and intrinsic worth. You are more than your work. You are more than what you can produce. You are more than the praise or criticism you receive in a workplace. God does not see you through the lens of your profession. He sees your heart, your character, your compassion, your faith. You are loved by Him not for what you do, but simply because you exist, because you are His creation. And nothing about your job, your title, or your performance can change that. Sometimes we get caught in the trap of believing that our work defines our worth because we crave affirmation. We want to feel important. We want to be seen. And so we pour ourselves into our careers, hoping that if we achieve enough, succeed enough, rise high enough, we'll finally feel secure. But that kind of security is an illusion. It never lasts, because there's always more to chase. Another goal, another title, another level. It's exhausting. And even if you reach the top, if your sense of self is built only on what you do, it will always feel fragile. The truth is, who you are matters more than what you do. Your kindness, your honesty, your patience, your resilience, your love. These are the things that define you. These are the things that define you. These are the things that remain when the job is gone. And these are the things God values most. He didn't create you just to work. He created you to live fully, to love deeply, to serve joyfully, and to grow spiritually. Your calling is not limited to your career. It's woven through every part of your life, how you treat others, how you show up in relationships, how you walk in faith, how you handle challenges, and how you offer your unique gifts to the world, regardless of your professional role. This doesn't mean your work doesn't matter. It does. Work can be a beautiful expression of your talents, a way to contribute meaningfully, a path to provision and purpose. But it is not your identity. When your job becomes your whole identity, it can blind you to the rest of your life. It can keep you from seeing your value apart from performance. It can make failure feel like the end of the world and rest feel like a threat to your worth. But God's view of you is not based on your output. His love is steady, unconditional, and unmoved by your job description. So if you're feeling lost because your job isn't fulfilling you, or you've lost a job and don't know who you are anymore, or you're working in a place that doesn't see your value, remember this: your identity is safe in God. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to earn your worth. You are already enough because He says so. You are already valuable because He made you. And your purpose goes far beyond the office walls, the titles on your resume, or the size of your paycheck. You are not your job. You are a child of God, loved deeply, called to live fully, and worthy of peace, purpose, and joy, no matter where you work or what you do. God has a greater plan for your life. That's not just a comforting idea to hold on to when things fall apart. It's a deep truth, rooted in His love for you and His understanding of who you are and what you're meant for. Life doesn't always go according to our plans. Sometimes a job that once felt right becomes a place of frustration, exhaustion, or even suffering. Sometimes opportunities we worked hard for slip through our fingers. Doors close. Paths end. And in those moments, it's easy to feel lost or even abandoned. But those closed doors and painful transitions are often part of something much bigger, something you can't see yet, but that God is already preparing. When a job becomes unbearable, it's not always a sign of failure. It could be a sign of redirection. It may be God allowing you to feel discomfort so that you don't settle for less than what He has planned for you. He knows the gifts He placed inside of you. He knows the passion, creativity, compassion, and intelligence you carry. And when you're stuck in a job that suppresses those gifts or drains your joy, He may be stirring up a restlessness within you, not to punish you, but to move you towards something better. That inner discontent can be holy ground. It's the space where He begins to shift your heart and prepare you for a new season. Sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that the job you once prayed for, the opportunity you once celebrated, is no longer right for you. Seasons change, and so do we. What once fit may now feel too small. What once brought fulfillment may now feel empty. That doesn't mean you're ungrateful. It means you're growing, and growth always leads us into new territory. God's plan for your life isn't stagnant. It's living, moving, and unfolding over time. He uses every season, even the painful ones, to shape you and guide you. We often want clarity before we move. We want the new job to appear before we let go of the old one. We want a detailed map of what's next. But God doesn't always work that way. He doesn't always give us the full picture. Instead, He gives us enough light for the next step. He invites us to trust, even when the way forward feels uncertain. That's what faith is, walking even when you don't see the whole path. Believing that if He's calling you out of something, it's because He's calling you into something greater. A greater plan doesn't always mean a higher paycheck or a fancier title. It might mean more peace. It might mean work that aligns with your values. It might mean a role that allows you to serve others more fully, or tap into parts of yourself that have been ignored for too long. God's plan is not always about worldly success. It's about eternal impact. It's about living a life that reflects His love, His wisdom, and His purpose for you. And when you're in the right place, you'll feel it, not necessarily ease, but alignment. A sense that your gifts are being used well. A sense that you're not just surviving your days, but living them with meaning. Letting go of a job or career that no longer serves you is hard, especially when it's tied to your identity or stability. But holding on to something that God is asking you to release only delays your growth. It's okay to grieve the ending. It's okay to feel uncertain, but don't let fear keep you from stepping into what's next. God sees your struggle, and He's not distant. He's working behind the scenes, opening doors you can't see yet, preparing people and places that will welcome the next version of who you're becoming. You were created for more than stress, anxiety, and endless striving. You were made with intention. Every experience, even the painful ones, can be used by God to shape your story. Nothing is wasted in His hands. The job you leave, the dream that shifts, the door that closes, all of it can become part of something greater. Trust that what feels like an ending now might be the very beginning of a beautiful, more aligned chapter. One where you wake up with purpose. One where your gifts have room to grow. One where joy returns. One where you're not just working, you're thriving. God's plan may not always be clear, but it is always good. And if you have the courage to follow where He leads, even when it's uncomfortable or uncertain, you'll discover that His way is always better than anything you could have planned for yourself. You're not stuck. You're being called. And He will never call you somewhere without preparing the way ahead.